Section 8. Luciano Anatolius, the Grey King, the Kappa of Camor, the last living member of his family line, stood alone on the upper deck of the floating grave, beneath the silk awnings that fluttered in the hangman's wind, beneath the dark sky that reflected the eerie waver of false light, and watched his ship burn. He stared into the west with the red fire rippling in his eyes, and he did not even blink. He stared north to the glowing tower of the Raven's Range, where flashing blue and red lights could be seen, where no cloud of pale white smoke was rising against the sky. He stood alone on the deck of the floating grave, and he did not cry, though in his heart he desired nothing more at the moment. Sharon and Reza would not have cried. Mother and father would not have cried. They had not cried when Barsavi's men had kicked in their door in the middle of the night, when his father had died trying to defend them all long enough for Gisela to bundle him and the little twins out of the back door. The satisfaction burned before his eyes, but in his mind he was running through the darkness of the gardens once again, 13 years old, stumbling over familiar paths with branches lashing his face and hot tears streaming down his cheeks. In the villa behind them, knives were rising and falling. A small child was crying for her mother, and then that crying suddenly stopped. "We'll never forget," Reza had said, in the dark hold of the ship that had carried them to Talasham. "We'll never forget, will we, Luciano?" Her little hand had curled tight inside his. Sharon slept uneasily against his other side, murmuring and crying out in her sleep. "We'll never forget," he had replied. "And we'll go back. I promise you, someday we'll go back." He stood on the deck of Barsavi's fortress in Camor, and had the power to do exactly nothing, as his ship turned the waters of Old Harbor blood red with its depth. "Caparazza?" There was a hesitant voice behind him. A man came up through the passage from the galleries below. One of the rum hounds from the extravagant gambling circle that had grown in his throne room. He turned slowly. "Caparazza, this just got brought in. One of the false light cutters, Your Honor. He says a man in Ashfall gave him a tyrant and told him to get this to you right away." The man held out a burlap sack. Raza was scrawled in it, in rough black letters. The ink still seemed to be wet. Luciano took the bag and waved the man away. The rumhound ran for the passage and vanished down it, not at all pleased with what he had seen in his master's eyes. The Cap of Camor opened the bag and found himself staring down at the body of a scorpion hawk, a headless scorpion hawk. He turned the bag upside down and let the contents fall to the deck. The head and the body of Vestris bounced against the wooden planks. A folded, blood-stained piece of parchment fluttered down after them. He grabbed at it and opened it. "We're coming." Luciano stared down at the note for an unknown interval of time. Might have been 5 seconds, might have been 5 minutes. Then he crumpled it in his hands and let it fall. It hit the deck and rolled to a rest beside Vestris's glassy, staring eyes. If they were coming, they were coming. It would be time enough for escape when this last personal debt was discharged. He went down the passage to the gallery below, into the light and the noise of the ongoing party. The smell of smoke and liquor hung in the air. His booted feet made the boards creak as he hurried down the stairs. Men and women looked up from their cards and dice as he stalked past. Some waved and shouted greetings or honorifics. None of them received any response. Caparazza threw open the door to his private suite of apartments, formerly Barsavi's, and vanished inside for several minutes. When he emerged, he was dressed as the Grey King, in his old fog-gray leather vest and breeches, in his gray shark-skin boots with the tarnished silver buckles, in his gray swordsman's gloves, creased at the knuckles from use. in his grey cloak and mantle with the hood raised. His cloak fluttered behind him as he moved forward. The lights of the floating grave gleamed on the naked steel of his drawn rapier. The party died in an instant. "Get out," he said. "Get out and stay away. Leave the doors open. No guards. Get out while I still give you the chance." Cards spiraled down to the deck. Dice rattled across the wood. Men and women jumped to their feet, dragging drunk comrades with them. Bottles rolled and wine pooled as the general retreat progressed. In less than a minute, the Grey King stood alone at the heart of the floating grave. He strode slowly over to a bank of silver cords that hung down from the ceiling on the starboard side of the old galleon. He pulled on one, and the white lights of the chandeliers died. He pulled another, and the curtains over the room's tall windows were pulled back, opening the throne room to the night. A tug on a third cord, and red alchemical globes came to life in dark niches on the walls. The heart of the wooden fortress became a cave of carmine light. He sat upon his throne with the rapier balanced across his legs, and the red light made fires of his eyes within the shadowed hood. He sat upon his throne and waited for the last two gentlemen bastards to find him.